turned off, please, Campy? Thank you. In the meanwhile, we'll just enjoy it. So good morning. I am so glad that you all are here on this hot and sultry day. This morning when I got up to get ready, my name is Cami Hoysa, by the way. My Twitter handle is CamiChat, K-A-M-I-C-H-A-T. And today we're going to be using SMBHOU as the hashtag. I also have three lovely guests here, and I'll introduce you to them in just a moment, and their Twitter name as well. But this morning I got up, and you know how Facebook has those memories that they give you? They bring them up, and they say, hey, 7 years ago today, you're like, oh, goodness, I don't want to really know what I was doing 7 years ago today. But what I was doing is I was standing outside of Coffee Grounds in the drive-thru outside with the mic cord hanging out the drive-thru window. And I saw that picture of myself. And how many of you ever came to a Coffee Grounds in the drive-thru window? Okay, see, these are like the diehards people. 7 years ago, we were outside. So let's give a hand to Canopy to thank them for letting us be inside today. All right, I'm really glad to be here. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guests today. And I'm really excited about this particular session of Social Media Breakfast because we've been planning it for a while. And as you'll see around you, there are a couple of things that have changed here. There's a sign behind us that is going to be living with us from now on that you guys can take a picture of. How many of you took the poll online when I asked you why you come to Social Media Breakfast? Cool. So this is the answers to your poll. So I put them up here on this sign, and we're going to be talking a little bit about why we did that here in a minute. And also, right here by Rebecca, she has this really cool frame. So I would ask you today, before you leave, make sure you get a picture of yourself and your buddies in the frame so that you can put it on social media in a cool way. And also, a couple of other things along that same line of branding Social Media Breakfast. We also have, if you pull out your Snapchat, your phone, pull out your phone, open up your Snapchat. We all should do this anyway, because we can actually add each other that way. So any of you that have Snapchat, open it up right now. Oh, my thumbprint isn't working. Okay, here it is. So open up your Snapchat. And I'm sorry, those of you who are out in the listening audience out there, you can't do this with us. But if you're in a room of people with your Snapchat open, you can pull down the top like that. And it'll say Add Friends. And then inside of Add Friends, there's a little nearby thing. So if anybody who has their Snapchat open nearby, you can click on Add Nearby, and all of you will show up in here that have your phone open at the moment. And then we can add each other. So I'm going to let that go while you're searching for that. That can be done while we're talking. The other thing that we did, and actually the beauty frame was done by Rebecca and her company. So thank you, Rebecca, for that. Also, Sarah did these really cool cards on your table in front of you that show the hashtag for today. You can take this with you, and when somebody asks you where can they learn about social media in Houston, give them this card, and they can come and join us. So that'd be cool, right? Thank you very much, Sarah, for doing that. And then something that I didn't even plan, but I have. Oh yeah, here we go. Remember our love handle friends? They made us awesome love handles with Social Media Breakfast on it. So say yay to that. Thank you. You didn't even know today was a brand. That's what we were doing. It's all good. All right, cool. So that being said, is Sarah Shah. She comes all the time, so hopefully you have met her if you're not new to Social Media Breakfast. Her Twitter is Sarah Shah, at Sarah Shah, SARAHSHAH. That's not there. Don't worry about it. I know it. Then next to her is Jaclyn Kent, and she is a blogger experienced in PR partnerships. I was going to say that Sarah also has her own agency as well, and she does amazing makeovers and things like that, right? Yeah. So she made us over. So that was our makeover, by the way. We'll talk about that in a minute. She goes, Cami, can I make over Social Media Breakfast? Because it's kind of boring and not very visual. I'm like, thank you. Okay, good. All right. Yes, please do. I'm not one to say no to stuff like that. Okay, so Jaclyn Kent, she's a blogger, and she's also very experienced in PR partnerships. She's done a lot of these kind of partnerships, and she's going to talk about that from her experience today. Her Twitter name is Beauty and Binky, so B-E-A-U-T-Y, and the whole word, Binky, like the kind of thing you suck on, I guess. My kids called it a Binky, B-I-N-K-Y. Good. So I'm glad somebody else calls it a Binky, not just me. Okay, good. The next. It's not a Southern thing? Okay. All right. She's from California dreaming about how it used to be when she was younger. Okay, so Allie is next to her, and Allie Danziger is the president and founder of Integrate Agency, and her team are on Integrate Team. So her agency name, Integrate, INTEGRATE, Team, TEAM. So that's her Twitter handle. So we'll be using those today as we talk. And the reason that I asked Integrate to come is because I actually noticed them on Snapchat and other places, Instagram, Snapchat. They kept showing up in my feeds, and I actually was very impressed by how they did a lot of behind-the-scenes kinds of things in their office and also at their different events. So I asked Allie if she'd come, and she said yes, so I appreciate that. All right, so to get started, I want to start with sort of the softball, I guess, and that is, why do you think it is important for us to work with influencers? And I'll start with Sarah, and just tell us why you think it is important for us as businesses and companies to work with influencers. Aren't they just a pain in the butt? Aren't they, I mean, why do we need to work with these people? Tell me.
The best influencer?
You gotta get close, okay. I'm telling you.
The best influencers are like your best friend. So for businesses 50 years ago, word of mouth was the way to go. And so now the professional blogger is your best friend, is the person that you trust. They're your experts in their fields, and they can really get the word out about your company the way people did face-to-face 50 years ago.
Why do you say?
I think the most important thing is that if a blogger or any kind of influencer has become successful at what they're doing, there's a reason, and there's a reason that people trust them and they've worked hard, and so essentially they're an expert at what they're doing. So just as you're an expert at your business or your company or whatever it is, or your profession, we're the expert in influencing others to either notice you, show up, buy something, etc.
So for me, coming from the traditional public relations background, as media continues to change, traditional media just doesn't work the same way that it once did. And so it's more about having those direct communication and direct outlet to who your target audience is. And sometimes social media is the best place for that. And sometimes it's through an influencer that has their ear, and we know they're listening to everything that influencer is saying. So while it may, sometimes we have to convince clients that no, I promise this blogger really is talking to the 100 people that are going to come to your restaurant or to your store, and their audience may not be as large as the Houston Chronicle or New York Times, but it's so much more impactful in actually driving that business and awareness.
Great, thank you. And one of the things, we are going to talk about today, which I think is kind of our focus, because we've talked about a lot here at Social Media Breakfast, like how to work with them, that kind of thing. But we're going to talk a little bit about why an event is kind of a good way to reach social media influencers and to reach their audiences. And I want to start with that first piece, which is, how do you find these people? How do you find the right influencers for your company or job? So who wants to take that? Jaclyn.
I think my biggest feedback here, and I personally get really frustrated as a blogger when people reach out to me and they haven't done this. If you are a professional and you are planning something, be strategic about it. Really have a plan, have a reason for reaching out to me. Don't just say you want me to come. I'm a mommy/fashion blogger, and I've been invited to food events. I've been invited to all kinds of things, and obviously I eat, but I can't go home and blog about that. I've never blogged about food. I've definitely blogged about alcohol, but not food. So just be really strategic about your whole entire event from start to finish, especially the people that you're going to either pay to work with or invite to be an influencer there.
Yeah, and I think it's just about doing that research. So not just downloading a list of who the top influencers are or who the top mommy bloggers are, but really knowing each individual influencer, blogger, whoever they are, and what speaks to them. So while you may not blog about food, we may still want to invite you to our restaurant just because you eat, so does everyone. And even if they're not going to write a blog post about it, think about what they are going to actually be interested in and how you can, and how you can use that to build a relationship as well. And then at the event, as you were saying, think about who's there and maybe have 5 different events that are targeted to different types of influencers or bloggers. Think about the types of things that they're going to want to take pictures of or with, and tailor your event to that, like having a photo
Frame, yeah.
frame or something like this that you can take a picture in front of versus writing text on your social media post. So I think those are some really important things, but the research is the first step.
Right, and I want to follow up with that real quick. Could you give it back to Allie for just 1 second, and then I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
So when you're looking, though, for these influencers and you're building relationships with them and you're making an event that actually appeals to them, I mean, for example, food. Yeah, you're great with food, but maybe it's like food for kids, like restaurants that kids can go to, or, you know, like tailoring that pitch to what you do. So can you tell me, like, though, how you actually find those influencers? I agree lists are terrible, but like some people in this room might say, well, where do I even start?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the first place we start is usually our clients' competitors and who's talking about those people. And that may be a first step for influencers. Or it may be a totally different type of business, but still appealing to the same target audience. So we look at who that target audience is and what they're reading, what they're retweeting, where they're checking in, etc. Also, at other events, you can oftentimes find who the other influencers are. So for instance, if I wanted to reach a bunch of social media influencers, I would look at who is tweeting and checking into this event, knowing that this event is pulling all of the top social media people in Houston, and then I would start following those people and seeing who would be the best people to invite to my next social media targeted
So
event.
following hashtags that are kind of trending in like a local area or other events.
Check-ins at events or at various locations, the followers. So for instance, if I was looking for like who her friends are, then seeing who you're talking to on Instagram, on Twitter, who you're with on Snapchat even, like even though I can't find them that way, but then I can get a better idea of who I'm trying to target. So it's very manual and it's very labor intensive and time consuming, but it's worth it because then you build these really great relationships and have people who are talking about your brand that you just, as a brand, you can't do on your own behalf. So it's worth it.
Yeah, and there are some tools that can help with that too. So I mean, I know we use one called Follower Wonk sometimes, which is a Moz product where you can, especially on Twitter, you can search people's bios. You know, so it's cool to look like search Houston food or Houston this and see what pops up. You know, sometimes nothing great, but you know, you can look at things and see who's out there. And I like that too. You're spying on your other competitors, and I'm sure you know lots of people. How many of you have ever gotten a call from somebody who found you at social media breakfast? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, okay, so people are already doing this, so yeah.
Another tool, kind of, not really with searching bios, but through any of the social media platforms or tools like Sprout Social or Hootsuite, you know, you can set up keywords. And so usually you're setting up those keywords to find conversations, as I'm sure you've talked about at other breakfasts. But you can also do that to find who the right people to follow are, like who is talking about social media in Houston, whether they're using the hashtag or not.
Yeah, that's a really great point, using the search tool. So yeah, why don't you let us know why you think it's important or how you find people that you think that is a good way to find influencers. Tell us about that.
I go to blogger events, and that's where I see them face to face. And a great person for that.
It's a really good one.
Yeah, and also Cup of Charisma over there. She has a whole blogger union, and she gets hundreds of bloggers together pretty regularly. So she's a great resource too.
There you are. So see, now stand up, turn around, bring her the frame, Rebecca, so she can get the picture. Okay, good. Yeah, you gotta do this later. We're putting it by you. We expect it. Okay. Hello. I cannot afford to pay for your bills. Sorry. Oh yeah, you can. That's nothing. All right. So that being said, we're having a lot of fun here, guys. You should come if you're in Houston. If you're in bed watching this, you know, good for you. But yeah, so I would say that, you know, that's a really great point that you're making. You know, work with groups. I mean, groups are out there, and there's a lot of them here in town as well, right? So Blog Elevated is coming up. Cup of Charisma. What's your group's name? The Blogger Union. So the Blogger Union could be another. I mean, I don't know how you feel about PR people, you know, crashing your party. So probably not. You probably need to talk to her directly before you get there.
They are all using the same hashtag throughout the event. So that's a way that even if it's not really appropriate to attend the event, you can still find who's there and who the bloggers that you would want to engage with are.
That's very good. No, it's great, Allie. That's good.
So also, especially in Houston, bloggers are divided up into lots of different groups. You've got bloggers, you've got fashion bloggers, you've got food bloggers, you've got Latina bloggers. So you can really target your audience based on the blogger groups.
Well, and Sandra's sitting right here in front of me, and they have a group here in town too, and you guys have an event coming up too, right? What is it? Yeah. Great. Yeah, so Texas Social Media Network, and I'm actually a member of that online. It's a group on Facebook. You can get into it, and that you can really find the Latino and Latina bloggers there or influencers. You can follow, and we've talked about this a lot, Twitter chats, right? So we have, where are you, Christy? Where's Christy? Ah, there you are. So Christy is here, and she does Snapchat on Wednesdays at Chat Snap. It's like I knew I was going to mess that up. Chat Snap. So on Wednesdays at 1, right? So at Wednesdays at 1, if you're interested in people that are really great on Snapchat and maybe are somebody that you want to find that's an influencer in that particular kind of vertical, you can follow that and see who comes there. Now, she has a national audience, but you can definitely, winnow that down and see who's in. I mean, you can just call her. And we did. We had you come out to Galveston last week, so 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I mean, that's what you do. You look at those different things. And of course, Madeline Sklar is here in town, and she does the Twitter chat, and that one is on Thursdays at 12. Yeah. So, I mean, Twitter Smarter. Yeah, thank you. Twitter Smarter. So, I mean, this is right here in Houston, like really, really big influencers that are national influencers, really. And we have like a great community like that. So you can find people in different verticals that way too, right? So could you talk a little bit about once you find them, how do you approach them?
We do it, well, before you reach out, you really want to do your research, as I know we kind of mentioned, but really reading their blog, looking at their social media, understanding who they are as a person and not just as a blogger or influencer. And then we wait to reach out until we have something actually interesting that would appeal to them. So sometimes we're just saying like, hey, wanted to get to know you, so we're on your radar. But for the most part, we would wait until we have like an event coming up or a promotion or something that like we know that they would be really interested in. And then we reach out with what the information is, what the photo op is also, because we know that like if you're really big on Instagram or for your blog, that you're going to need this type of photo op. And then we spell out what that photo opportunity is and then how it would appeal best to their audience. So it's really personalized. It's not some like blast email that every single blogger in Houston's getting, but okay, we have this house that we're doing photo shoots in for these days, and we think your next kitchen photo shoot would be great in this designer's house, and here are the people, the other brands that we're partnering with, here's the social media handles, etc. So that's just one example of something we're doing next week. But well, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I mean, it makes it so that we're making their jobs easier, and it's really the same idea as traditional PR. And I don't know how many traditional PR people there are in the audience.
How many of you are and have been in traditional PR? Yeah.
So
good number.
Yeah, it's really no different than like the basic stuff that we learned in college of just making journalists' lives as easy as possible and being a resource for them and knowing what mediums and what stories and everything appeal to them. And so we just take that exact same approach with the bloggers and influencers.
And from the other side, both Jaclyn and Sarah, I'd like you to talk a little bit about when you get approached by someone that wants you to work with them, what are you kind of looking for? Because I've been in plenty of groups where they mock those outreaches. So can you kind of explain what you're looking for and what's the no-nos, what's the to-dos?
I think I don't know if y'all saw, I like tossed the mic right to Allie as soon as she asked that question, because Integrate has done such a good job about this. I've worked with, I think, 3 of Allie's employees. All of them knew something personal about me, not in like a weird, creepy way, but they had to have read an Instagram caption at least 10 photos back to have known that. You know what I mean? Like they didn't just scroll through my Instagram once and be like, oh, you cute and you got a kid, let me reach out. You know what I mean? So so many, yeah, anyway. So I think being very personal about it. And then my biggest thing is that when you reach out, remember that you're talking to another person, and really, be personable. Don't be robotic about anything. Definitely don't copy and paste the same stuff to multiple people. Again, just be really targeted about what you're contacting them for. We get hundreds of emails a day. Some of them are just like blanketed press releases that I don't even read, and half the time I don't even know what this is. What? I'm not in New York. Like, God. So a lot of it's just really frustrating. But when you get that personal first line or two, you're immediately, put at ease. You're more positive and open to whatever it is they're going to say. I personally don't do a lot of collaborations that do not provide compensation. And I will say that I do always with integrate. Like, I would do anything that they ask for, just because, like, I know them now. They're my friends, and I want to be there, and I want to support them as my friends. So just remember, you're talking to another person. They may not be the best person, you'll come to find out, but you'll find the right ones by being friendly and by being really open about what you want from them, what you can offer, etc. So really spell things out, but try to be personal about it and not so robotic about it.
So I get people reach out to me in two ways. One, I get the blanket emails, and if it's a interesting event, I'll reach out and ask them if they're inviting me to buy a ticket, or if they're inviting me to cover it, or like, what is it that they're contacting me about? Yeah. And for me, if it's, I always want to go behind the scenes. So if you want me to come to something, let me behind the scenes and I'll cover it all day long. Also, when people get to know me, then they'll start to invite me to things that are really good fits for me, fashion events, or I like to eat. So I
take note, everybody. Everybody likes to eat.
I don't necessarily put that on my blog, but that's something that's always on my social media.
Yeah. No, that's great. And those are great photo ops, too. I mean, I think that's part of the thing, too, is what you give. So we talked very briefly, the word compensation came up. So I want to talk about that because it's the big elephant in the room, right? What is the compensation? And also the fact that bloggers are both a business and they're personal, which is different than being a business. Like, this would be great for your audience. You should cover this. Can come off really not so great. So the question is then, where's that fine line? Where does the compensation start? What should be compensated? What shouldn't be compensated? And this is a big conversation. So we're going to start talking this out. You want to start since you're right next to me?
Yeah, sure.
All right, Sarah.
So I think it depends on the blogger that you're in contact with. If it's someone who's a beginner, offering them a product may really work for you. But if it's someone who's been at this for a while, has built up a nice following, is an influencer, they're going to want compensation because they have worked really hard to get this following and to build their brand and know their voice. That either
what kind of compensation? Let's talk about that. What does that mean?
So money.
That'd be the first one, right?
Money. Another thing sometimes is travel. So if you're being invited to an event, then the travel expenses and the hotel accommodations and things like that, and some spending money, sometimes that's enough. But often it's actually a fee.
And I'll say, so I did mention I don't collaborate often without money compensation. I have been blogging for almost, I guess, 2.5 years now. And it's not that I think like, oh, I've grown so much or I'm just so pro at this now. I think really, I started matching my career income with my blog, which is a huge step. I've doubled my income. And I think what it boiled down to was the amount of time and effort that I'm putting into even just one Instagram post, especially just one Instagram post, let me tell you, has been, it's very valuable to me. What I do is very valuable. And if you're going to partner with someone, I would hope that you would find them valuable. Otherwise, just don't work with them. So for me, now at this point, I have so many paid opportunities that it's really hard for me to go ahead and take unpaid opportunities because it takes time away from time that I could be pitching somebody else that might pay me, or time that I could be just improving my blog in general, or just shooting some stock photo, whatever other work I could be doing. it's now taking that away for something that's, not necessarily not benefiting me, but you know what I mean? So again, I think getting close to people just as a friend and as somebody that you're going to come back to is the biggest first step. When I chat with people, there are some people I don't even bring up compensation. Allie and Integrate are one of them. And then there's some people that I say, hey, what's your budget? And I have been paid $500 for one blog post before, but if you tell me your budget's $5, it's most likely I'll go ahead and take $5. So just keep the communication open. If someone comes back and says, oh, $500 for me to cover your event, that covers parking, a new outfit, blah, blah, blah. Don't just ghost and not respond. Come back and say, hey, I really value and appreciate what you're going to do. I'm so excited to see what you wear. But my budget for this was closer to $100. Does that work for you? And even though that seems like such a small fraction of what they came back with, it's most likely that they're not going to turn down money. You know what I mean? So I have literally been paid anywhere from $500 to $500 for a blog post. And
it depends on the amount of effort it takes too. I mean, because when you talk about a $500 blog post, that generally has something to do with, what you have to put into it. So if you have to go buy an outfit for the post or travel somewhere.
So I'm very strategic about the fee that I come back with. If I have to get a babysitter, if I have to hire a photographer, I do a lot of my own shoots, but if for some reason I have to hire a photographer, obviously you invest a lot in your blog, and I keep a spreadsheet of spending and receiving, and I've actually, now I'm going to claim a lot of extra stuff on my taxes so that way I don't owe a ton. But technically, if you look
the IRS is not listening to this live stream.
If you look at my spreadsheet, it looks like I've made nothing from blogging because there's that much that I can write off that I've spent. So just keep that in mind. It's a huge investment for us. Also, just a quick FYI, if you gift me something and I agree to post about it. Now, if you're just sending me random crap in the mail, this doesn't count. If you say, hey, I'm going to send you this, I don't know, lipstick, and you're going to post about it on Friday, August, whatever, and I say, confirmed, send the lipstick, posting on this date, I have to claim that as income. Now, I said lipstick, which is super cheap, but you can't imagine all of the things that I get gifted. So at the end of the day, a lot of things go into that conversation. Please don't be put off if someone comes back with the fee and it seems, maybe irrelevant to what you're doing or just sky high. Again, keep that conversation open, and even if it turns out that you guys can't partner this time, again, it's a friend. Keep the conversation open, and come back to them later when you have a higher budget or they have a dead season and they're willing to do something lower or for free.
Great answer. So I would say primarily our clients do not have the budget to pay for influencer marketing. Sometimes they do, but for the most part, that's just not within the budgets. So we're upfront with the influencers and the bloggers from the beginning that that's probably not going to be something possible, at least for this, but we do, of course, keep those relationships open for, another client down the road that then does have a budget or another opportunity that may just work really well for them, and maybe we can do a trade or something like that. So trade is normally what we can offer, whether it's restaurant gift cards or movie passes or opportunities to do things to make their lives easier. So like I mentioned with the home, so we work with a home builder who has these amazing modern homes, and they are the perfect backdrop for every single blogger photo shoot. So that we know that that's something that they need. They need an awesome pool with really cool donut floats and or cupcakes that are really beautifully decorated that could be in the background of a photo shoot that has nothing to do with the cupcakes, but let's just give you this because it would be a great partnership and really help with what you're trying to accomplish. So that's really more of the compensation type of agreements that we have. We're always very upfront of if we are gifting something and if we need something in return. I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but we have contracts that we work out with them so that it's very clear on the expectations from both sides. But then there are occasions that we do have those budgets, and usually those are more for the giveaways, where we're going to be getting a lot of followers from those types of things, we all follow each other and then we give something away. Sometimes we will pay to partner for those because we know that we're really just kind of like buying their likes or their followers in all honesty, and we've agreed that like that's what the budget we want to be using it for.
Right, and I know that we've worked with influencers before in a bunch of different ways. You know, a lot of times we do a lot of travel and tourism, so that often doesn't have, it has in-kind kind of, we talked about this on the phone. But one of the things that you can remember is that if you hire a blogger to take a bunch of pictures and you work it out with them that then you can reuse those photos, it's like you're hiring a photographer that also has influence. So I mean, you can think of it that way sometimes too for your budgets. You know, it is like a consulting job really in large part. We talked about it being a partnership, and it is, but I mean, your client's relationship with you are also a partnership. So it's like, you know, a consulting fee is not out of the question for some of these things. What would you say?
Yeah, and that's typically how I'm paid when it comes to blogging, is more in a strategic consulting fee rather than a per post fee. So some bloggers are paid per post, some are paid for a campaign. For me, it's more about the strategic thinking and creating the event in a way that can be shared by bloggers, influencers, and even your own customers.
And that actually puts us right next thing, which is the event itself and sort of what it is. Can you talk a little bit, Sarah, because this is sort of your baby, talk about why you made over social media breakfast as an example. What do you tell your clients, if you will, or the people that you work with? Because I know you go to a lot of these events and you kind of, you know, put them together at the end. You tell them you should be doing this and you should be doing that. So tell us a little bit about what we should be doing ahead of time so we can get ready.
Yeah, so hopefully I get to come in before the event and be part of the planning process. So there are things at the beginning, the middle, and the end. So you want to talk about the before right now? So before an event, it's really important for bloggers, for Jaclyn and I, to get things like the hashtag a couple weeks in advance. So a lot of times you just get that when you arrive, but we hopefully are already promoting the event before we get there. So we need the hashtag well in advance, a month in advance, a couple weeks in advance at least, so we can get all that stuff in our calendar so when we arrive we know what we're doing. We want to know stuff like, what's the address? What do you want us to do when we get there? Do you want to help drive ticket sales, or do you just want to share the event, or do you want us to promote certain products? So that product information beforehand, why you want us to come, that's really important. Where am I going to park? Just those little details. It makes it so much easier for me to arrive and do a good job for you. Wi-Fi, I want the Wi-Fi name of the network and the code a couple weeks in advance, because a lot of times we don't have cell service. And so to have access to the Wi-Fi network.
Or at least right before you come. A couple weeks in advance, they may not know it, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But in the morning,
Fair
so
enough.
that I can already have it in my phone, so I'm not scrambling around looking for someone when I get there. Because when I get there, I'm ready to start sharing things, and it takes time to get that stuff set up.
I just want to highlight, we already said this and she already said this, but be strategic about what you're doing. Like if you're planning an event, you know, maybe you don't know the Wi-Fi, but you know where you're having the event, call them and ask them. Like just really plan things out well. I've hosted plenty of blogger events, and if a full-time working mom, wife, full-time blogger can manage to get a Wi-Fi password out, I trust you guys to do it too. And I'm like sleep deprived as well. So, you know, a lot of the things are just being prepared and just being professional about it all.
I guess in advance, I'm trying to think of like what hasn't been already said, but really thinking about what is there and like that it is photo ready, because that's what they want. So really making sure that like if it is a food event, that the dishes are prepared, they're coming out on time, and that they are plated in the way that, yeah, if you're hiring a photographer, the same way that you would want it to be plated, or if it's a jewelry event, like that they're displayed in a way that can both be photo ready as well as like tried on and made for great photo ops. Photo booths have obviously become incredibly popular, and that's just because like that's what people want to take pictures of. So if you know that people want to take pictures of something, like make it easy and available for them. And then also in addition to like being prepared, training whoever the spokesperson is with some talking points, so that they don't just get up there and talk for hours on end unprepared and ramble because they're nervous. We like to give them, maybe 4 sentences, have a timeline of like when everything is going to happen, when they're going to get up, how long they have, what they're going to say, because then it just makes the event run that much smoother.
That's great. And then, so when they arrive at this event, what is the thing that needs to happen when they arrive? What should they see? I mean, we talked a little bit about having things ready, but what should they expect? And talk a bit about that. Maybe also, before we get to that, actually, let's talk about the contract, because I don't want to miss that in the beginning. Let's talk about the contract, because I think that's also important. Could you tell us a little bit about how you work with influencers on contracts?
We don't do contracts so much for events. It's really more for like the bigger partnerships, but it's just about being very clear expectations of what the deliverables are from both parties. So if they want to be able to interview someone, if they want to own the photos, or who owns the photos is always like a really big conversation, as well as what the compensation is. We sometimes get some pushback on these contracts, to be honest, especially like with bloggers who are a little bit newer to the blogging scene. But once they've then gone through that process, everyone is thrilled to have a contract. And as we talked about on the phone, like y'all love it so much, just because then it's really clear and everything's laid out and there's no surprises and no disappointment on either end, because everyone kind of talked about it before the event happened.
Yeah, and expectations too, right? So
I'm a teacher. I went to school for teaching. So I love to set expectations. I love to know what is expected of me. So I love contracts. I've always loved contracts. I do think there is something to be said about working with the blogger in a professional manner. If, I don't know if you want to like qualify people on levels or whatever, but yeah, like beginners may not be there yet. But if you're partnering with a professional blogger, they should be pretty well versed in that, because that's a very common thing, especially when you're getting paid to do something. Yeah.
Sorry, sometimes contracts sound really scary. So I just want to preface that what we're normally talking about is like a 1-page signed bullet points, like, yeah, not like something 6 pages that we're talking about, crazy legal jargon. This is something that everyone in this room can easily understand and read on your cell phones. So just wanted to preface that.
Yeah, and you can even put it on something like hello sign or something like that, which is an online signing. Instead of saying, you have to sign it, fax it back to me, which like, where do I find a fax machine these days? It's kind of like they're going the way of the telephone, that you find on the corner of the street. You don't see them anymore. But yeah, so that's been a real great thing too, is that there's these technologies out there like HelloSign and others. I know we use HelloSign, but yeah.
And I think the most important thing that maybe we haven't said yet is that it protects you. I like it because it protects me, but it also protects you.
Yes.
Yes. Contracts. Okay, so now that we got the contract out of the way, they're coming to your event, they're showing up. Sarah, what would you have ready for them?
Definitely visual things. So bloggers and influencers tell stories with pictures. So Jaclyn will say great lighting, because a picture of something that isn't lit well just doesn't look that great. And how can we tell a story with the pictures of your event? So that's why we added some things here at Social Media Breakfast.
Could you kind of go through each one of those and why you thought we should add them? Could you talk about our makeover?
Yes, absolutely. So
I feel like I'm an Ellen DeGeneres show now. I'm being made over.
So a tip card is really helpful, because we can just take a picture of it and it tells the whole story right there. So this banner that Cammie made has the hashtag right on it. Why do people come?
Yeah, and we'll pull it out here in a minute and put it out so you guys can play around with it. But we put it behind us today, but it's going to be at the front door every time you come from now on. So people can take pictures with it. They know when they arrive that they're here.
Yes. They know they're in the right place. The information's right on there. Super easy to share. So you know that your event was a big fail if all people did was take pictures of themselves. They took selfies and that was all you got. Then you know that there was nothing there for them to take a picture of. So Jaclyn and I went to a tree decorating event, and when they treated us like consumers, like we were going to buy something, instead of treating us like we were there to share information about them. So we're not consumers. We're not there to get a discount. We have so much free stuff at home. We have so much free stuff at home, we don't really need to shop, honestly. So what they did was they took 20 minutes and they decorated the tree, and they went through all the steps of first you put the garland on in a zigzag pattern, and then you take this kind of ornament and you do, instead of having 5 trees already done, tree number 1, it's already got the garland on it. The next one already has the ornaments in the right places, yes, and the lights, and that way they can go
step by step,
and then we can take a picture step by step, and boom, the collage is done. It's so much easier to do it that way than to actually do the event like we were a consumer. So,
and it was kind of awkward watching this lady decorate a tree. Like just sitting there, she's like bending and, like tiptoeing, and it just like I should help you. A picture of your back. Like,
yeah, and it did. It made it really awkward to take a picture of her because she was never in a very flattering position. So you couldn't get the tree, you couldn't get her, you couldn't take a video. So in the end, we took selfies and we left. So, and I have a whole list, but I'll share the mic.
Okay. I think during the event for me, again, I just like to know expectations. So if you don't have like a sign-in or a check-in or something, either have someone greet your influencers or special guests, or at least I've actually had people say, hey, we noticed your blogger friends with XYZ, and she's also going to be there. Maybe you guys can ride together. And I had already texted blogger XYZ, but it was just a really nice touch that, first of all, they knew who I'm friends with personally, and then second of all, they cared enough to like connect us and make sure that we felt comfortable there. So I think another thing I personally love, which a lot of people will probably disagree, is like named seating, to where you are not sitting with people that so if you do come in a group, you are actually forced to separate a bit. I love that because then everybody has to talk.
No, I think that those are great things. Don't have too much to add except that we just like to walk around the event and make sure that things are going smoothly, because things will always go wrong at an event. And so someone has to be just making sure that things are going, or if things aren't, fixing it and problem solving, so that the client, who really is just responsible for communicating the brand, can focus on that.
Do you also, just as a follow-up, do you also do on-site social media?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about on-site social media.
So, well, first off, when you say like have little pieces of paper, we always like to remind, of course we've told them what the hashtag is in advance, but remind them of what it is, so there's signage around there. So hopefully they are using the hashtag, and as we're walking around making sure that everything's going smoothly, we're also reminding them to use the hashtag or the Snapchat filter or whatever it is that we've used to kind of brand the event. But then yes, we will be taking pictures and posting those pictures, possibly maybe posting them afterwards throughout the event as well, and engaging with those influencers on social media, whether it's Instagram or Twitter, talking to them, saying thanks so much for coming. And that's also the opportunity that we can really build that social media following, so that a week later we can still continue engaging with them on the social media platforms. Also, all of the pictures that you're taking are good for their brand recognition and awareness. And so posting those pictures and tagging them appropriately in it from the brand social media helps them get more followers too. So kind of talking about that with them, and hey, how do you want me to, is this picture okay for me to post? And having that type of conversation, knowing exactly what their goals are, can help as well.
That's great.
I think I'd love to mention Integrate actually did a dinner with one of their clients, brand Gavin Diamonds, and they really probably like doubled or tripled their social shares by having a little contest. And so I don't even know what the prize was, a piece of jewelry, I assume. Just if you use the hashtag and tag brand Gavin during the event. So. Oh, and a friend. Okay. So yeah, it just like get creative with getting people to share. Obviously, if you're like working specifically with a blogger, they know that that's their job to share anyways. But if you're hosting a huge event with lots of influencers, good lighting, making sure that there's a lot that they can share, but then also make it fun. Like do a scavenger hunt. If you post, in 3 places, you win, I don't know, a lipstick, whatever.
Yeah. Something to make it fun. Be present to win.
Yeah. And so the most important thing that I have to say is most people will want to work with influencers and bloggers to access their network. the most important network for you to access is your own. So when you say something in your own stream, it's advertising. When I say something and you share it in your stream, that's the truth. And it activates your own followers in a totally different way. So really, we're not there for you to access our network. We're there for you to really impact your own network.
Right, and we talked about this a lot on the phone, and I think it's one of the things that I think a lot of people really miss the boat on. They do retweets and things like that, but you can also do a retweet with a little bit of a share. You know, like this is where we're so glad that Jaclyn loved our Christmas tree. You know, here it is, and hey, if you really want to know how to decorate a Christmas tree, Jaclyn came and she can teach you how to do it on her blog. And here's the actual link to that. And Allie wants to say something.
Right. So a lot of times events, it's like so much content in a 3-hour period, and then the brand goes silent for the next 3 days because the agency is overworked or whatever. But that's but
or they go to Europe on vacation. Sorry, guys.
It's so much content that can be used for the next month. Like, don't feel like all of that content that the influencers were sharing in that event time frame can only be used then. It's almost better to wait a couple weeks, a couple days, and keep the energy going.
Right, and get more out of it. And we do that as bloggers. That's a huge strategy. If you scroll through my Instagram feed, you can find the same outfit probably over like 20 pictures or something, because I've stocked up these 15 professionally shot pictures, and I'm not letting them go to waste. So
yeah. And also different versions of it, because I saw yours, you know, and you can also look at what people are writing about in their things. And if you have a person that you have a relationship with, if they say something, even in something that's not related to you, you can talk to them, you know, so you can keep that relationship going or sharing their stuff as well. It doesn't have to be about you. It's not about you, always.
And we have a blogger friend, Nicole, and she does a lot of work with Walgreens, and they are constantly boosting her posts. So they use her posts as their shares, and they keep doing it.
You mean advertising. So yeah. Kind of talk about that a little bit.
I don't really understand how that works.
Yeah.
So I've had I work with a blogger platform. It's called Social Fabric. Basically what they do is they're kind of a liaison between large brands and bloggers. So if, for example, I recently worked on a campaign with all laundry detergent. And they kind of get together and create this like really creative idea, and then you kind of hone in and make it your own. You apply. Once you're approved, then you complete it, etc. So for the all laundry detergent, they wanted like DIY crafts that could be machine washed, basically, was kind of the thing. So I did this little like stencil pineapple beach towel. And what they did, the brand and Social Fabric partnered together. They went through all of them and they said, hey, we really like this one. I don't know, the photos or the project or whatever. It just fit right on the Facebook ad. I don't know. So they used my blog, my images, as an ad on the side of Facebook. So when you're on desktop and you see that random, mine right now is like these Nordstrom boots that I looked at for the end sale. Like it just keeps coming back and I'm like, I know, I need them. It changes for everybody, but if you seem like the type of person to buy laundry detergent, which hopefully is everybody, you may see this ad. And so the ad, it looks like a laundry detergent ad, but it's actually just a DIY craft. And so I get a ton of traffic to my blog. I mean, like quadruple jillions. But also it gets eyes on their laundry detergent, and it may remind you, like, sometimes they'll do it if they have a specific discount going on, and so then if they're like looking at this pineapple towel, they're like, oh, and also this laundry detergent's $2 off. Like, oh, I need laundry detergent, let me go get it, or whatever, print the coupon, what have you. So they use your content to creatively advertise, and it's not just an in-your-face, go buy laundry detergent thing.
And if we've done a great job talking to each other beforehand and we really know what you want, and what content you like, and the format that you like, then what we're putting out is material that's really easy for you to share.
Right, and I love that. And Allie, go ahead, you can talk about this, but if you're also saying out there, hey, I don't have like laundry detergent, and I'm not a B2C, and I'm B2B. What about B2B? Sorry, we're going to do that next month. By the way, we're going to talk about B2B, but in the meanwhile, I like what Hispanicize did. I noticed it. For all of their speakers, they actually picked influencers to come to their conference, right? To Hispanicize coming up. Latism. Sorry, it was Latism. I'm sorry, thought it was okay. So Latism has gotten speakers to come, and they have an influencer group that's coming. And they did this really cool thing that I learned from, by the way, just a couple of weeks ago. They gave each speaker an image with their face on it, with the Latism stuff underneath it, for them to show that they are now an influencer of Latism. And we did that for B2C groups all the time. You know, put this on your blog. Here's a badge for your blog if you're an ambassador for us or whatever. But I thought it was great for like a conference, or also just like, you know, to give to an influencer, like, hey, this person is an influencer of our conference that's coming up. So they also gave promo codes, right? Which is very basic. I mean, we do that a lot too, and then that way you can find out who is the most influential of the people that are your influencers for a particular event. So you know who's bringing home the bacon as a brand. So if you give them influencer codes for events especially, you can find out who's coming because they gave them the code. It's an interesting way to look at that. So we're running kind of out of time, but what I want to do is talk a little bit more about after the event. And one of the things I definitely want to hit on is measurement. Like, how do you measure if something is working? Like, how do you know if an influencer is actually moving the needle? Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Allie?
One, we do oftentimes do the discount codes, so then we can see if bloggers or those influencers are driving traffic. But a lot of times, like from an event, like the type of thing we're talking about, sure, we may get a lot more social media followers from it. There may be a lot of conversation. We get great content from it. And overall, it just helps to then establish the relationship to then have a better relationship moving forward with that influencer. And that's the way that we can truly measure if those events were successful, if then we're able to continue working with them in a way that then we can measure that that blog post then drove the traffic that then influenced the sale. So it would be through attendance, through general awareness, through social media growth. There's definitely not like sales from an event, but then does it come later?
Yeah, that's great. Sarah's looking to see if we want to make sure we don't miss anything here. Yeah. So,
yeah, I would say I've definitely had companies give me specific tracking links, or I have some affiliate links, or discount codes. But I think Allie did a great job, and Sarah kind of mentioned this too. Like, I personally, if you come to me to drive sales to your business or brand, I will turn you down. That's not my personal influence. Now, there are tons of bloggers who do that, and they're great at it. Personally, I'm not good at that. So I don't partner in that way very often. I'm much more of a writer. I write a lot of very like emotional parenting and motherhood posts that, again, then you can share with your audience. That gives you more content. And then I work a lot with like other bloggers and fashion, which, anywho, so for me, I haven't had a lot of like tracking or anything like that. I've only worked in partnership on an event to actually like help sell tickets once, but I was hosting the event technically, so that was a little different because I invited all my friends.
And do you have a media kit? Do you have something you give? And talk about that just a little bit. What do people ask you for?
I honestly don't use my media kit. Okay, so maybe y'all can appreciate this, but like I pitch to a lot of brands and companies very often. And I've just gotten so much feedback that like, thank you so much for your 2-sentence, 2 paragraphs. I love you. You had no attachments. Thank you. You know, like we all get bombarded with so many emails that mine are extremely short. Hey, this is what I do. This is what I want to do for you. So I don't use my media kit. I have one on file because some people will ask. It basically just sums up my stats. I actually don't even put pricing on it because it varies so much. And I'm so open to that conversation that I felt just odd if I put a specific number. It says a little bit more about my blog, but yeah, I don't use mine as often. But I will do a kind of recap. If I work with like a smaller business or a local business and we've agreed on a certain partnership, again, I like explanations and expectations. So I will always follow up and say, this is what I'm expecting, this is what you're expecting. And then afterwards, like, hey, here's the link to XYZ that you expected. I already received XYZ that I expected. Great partnering, blah, blah, blah. So if sales was part of that, then I would recap that as well.
Since we do sometimes track those link backs with specific Google links or whatnot, it is great to then go back to that blogger or influencer and say, hey, just so you know, your blog post actually ultimately led to $10,000 in sales on our website. Because then that's, again, just building that relationship and giving them content that, trust me, they would love to then share in their media kit or with other brands as well.
Very good, Elaine. That's good.
And that feedback is amazing. So a lot of times the event's over and we don't hear anything back. And so I did one little video and one little blog post about a makeup brush by a makeup artist here in Houston. She shared that one time on her personal Facebook page and one time on her business Facebook page in February, and she's still sold out of it. And so I check in with her every once in a while, and I've asked her for a testimonial, and she keeps saying, oh my God, the brush keeps selling. Like, could you write that for me? That would be so great. But a lot of times our influence is really hard to track, and that is the tricky thing for us too. And my social media is targeted for my clients who are image clients, and so a lot of it is products. And so I get their text messages and I get their phone calls. Oh my gosh, I love the sunglasses. I bought them for my father for Father's Day. But that's nowhere on social media, and there's no like, there's no comment, there's no share, there's no nothing. So it's a little tricky.
I think that does help with the relationship though, long term, right? It's like building that relationship, telling them how they helped you and so on. And if something doesn't work, then maybe talking about why that was. Can you kind of, I know that for you that's a deal, like, so why is this not working? People will just say, well, I had a bunch of influencers out because we showed them how to decorate a Christmas tree and all they did is take selfies of themselves and leave. The question is then, why didn't that work?
A true story, and that's why we're here, is because it really can work to work with influencers, but a lot of times brands don't know what we need. And so hopefully we're here today to share with you some of those things that we do need. And you've got our Twitter handles and phone numbers and all that. Call. We'd love to tell you. We'd love to share it with you because we want you guys to be successful too.
Any famous last words over there? I'll open it up before I open it up for questions. No? All right. Does anybody have any questions about working with influencers? Yeah. Trish is asking about messaging and sample tweets, sample posts during social media events.
I think it's great to have those sample posts. I am probably going to reword them in my own words, but I love knowing what messages you want to get out, and so that I can choose the ones that are in alignment with me and my clients.
I think maybe time better spent on like a couple bullet points that you like really want included, because like she said, I'm very specific about my voice on all of my channels, so I really hate scripted stuff. But you know, don't make it a requirement. But yeah, if you want to do like bullet points, like these are the things that are really important for you to touch on, then they'll work it in their own, you know, creative way that fits them.
I find that most successful less with like social media types of influencers or influencers that are really active on social media, and more with like businesses who don't have time but may still have a large social media following, but we want them to, or even not a huge social media following, but it still just like helps get out there. And we know that they don't have time and don't necessarily care as much about the voice happening on their social media, to be honest, but we want them to share that message.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because it depends on the influencers, right? So Houston Press Club, maybe that would be useful to them. The people that are the influencers that come to that event, unless they have their own voice that they're interested in propagating. So look at that. Yeah. Other questions? Louis. So he was asking about compensation. Do you disclose your compensation if you're being compensated? And if you are being compensated, are you likely not to say, like, you know, your mother said, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, or say something that maybe you don't even believe in? I don't know. So let's talk about that.
Yes, by law, you must disclose that you were paid. If you go to beautyandthebinky.com, probably every other post has a bold paragraph at the very beginning before any pictures or any other words that say that I was compensated, and links to the brand that I was compensated with. And I also disclose if I have any affiliate links right at the top as well. I'm a stickler for rules. I'm a teacher, so I do that every post, every time, no questions asked.
The FTC.
Hello? Okay. Nope. I heard a click. Yeah. It's yours. It's yours. So yes, I do. I would say this is where contracts are amazing when you're working with bloggers, especially bloggers who aren't teachers like me and want to follow the rules, because you can put that in the contract that they have to disclose per FTC guidelines. And then you can kind of write your own if you want. I have some brands that write their own, and I just copy and paste it to the top. And then personally, when I partner for compensation, I don't do anything review style, even if I'm partnering with a makeup brand or something like that. So for example, if I'm sent this red lipstick, I would do like a date night look or how to wear red during the day. So I may not actually even say anything about the lipstick itself or the quality of the lipstick, but it just brings that brand awareness and gives them something to share. So I don't feel obligated to say anything positive when I am paid. I have actually reached back out to a brand and said I absolutely cannot post about this. So, but again, that's me. I'm very comfortable saying no. I love saying no. So some people may not feel that way, but I personally, that's how I do it. So
All the batteries are running low. We didn't plug that in. Anyway, cool. Somebody want me to plug my computer in because I didn't do it. Okay, so that one's dead too? Okay, mine's good. Yeah, it's underneath the table. Anyway, so here we go. My techies are coming up. Thank you guys. So yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. And Sarah, you were going to say something about that too, but can you talk a little bit about how you handle that sticky wicket of the fact you're being paid to say something?
Yeah, so my criteria for covering anything is always the same. I have to like it, I have to try it, I have to use it. And if I don't like it, then I don't say anything, whether I've been paid or not. Because just because I don't like it doesn't mean someone else doesn't like it. I don't need to trash anybody. But if I like it, I'm going to say it, and whether I'm paid or not. And I'm not paid that much for a post, so.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I mean, there is a requirement that you do say those things, but the blogger is not as often held responsible, although they are, as the brand. So you need to actually make sure in your requirements up front in the contract that you say you must disclose and give them reasons and ways to disclose. And they can disclose any way they want, but they have to disclose in the ways that at least are minimum requirement from FTC. So most bloggers know very much about this. This is something we talk about constantly in this particular field. But yeah, it's really important that happens. Any other questions? Yes, and I think that's still not working, but it's okay. Yeah. The one pitch that really made you say, yeah, I want to work with these people.
They treat me like a human. I'm not expecting perfection at all. And they tell me what they want, and they respond to me if I respond to them. There's no one way for me.
I think I would kind of ditto that. Just the more personable ones who have took the time to get to know me as a blogger a little bit better. And I also, obviously I'm a pretty rambunctious, energetic person. So if there's exclamation points, I'm immediately drawn to you. But so I think maybe mirror their voice. That's a true body language tactic, or communication tactic, is kind of mirroring their energy and their voice, and maybe some of the phrases that they use. I love when brands call my son Binky, because my blog is Beauty and the Binky. My son's name is Owen. But I love it when they're like, oh my God, Binky is so cute, because I call him Binky on there. So yeah, maybe just picking up some of the terms that they use frequently, or ways that they describe themselves, or just kind of mirroring their communication style, I think.
That's a communication 101 tactic, right? And what I would suggest is not to do that with tech bloggers, okay? Just putting that out there. Eric Tung. Hi, Binky. No, I'm just kidding. Just saying. Erica, you're not here, so I'm bothering you. Okay, good. So, yeah, that's great. Any other questions?
Actually, I have one more thing to say.
Sure.
I love a phone call or messages on social media. I'm dyslexic, so if you make me read anything longer than this, it's going to probably not get done. But if you call me, I will always answer my phone.
It's worth a try.
I was just going to say it's probably just knowing the difference too, because some people do not want you to call them or like have that type of conversation with them on Twitter. Well, some do. So it's just really knowing who they are.
Yeah, and we had a question back there. Using a satisfied customer as an influencer in a B2C and also B2B. I mean, that's another way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like influencer, it doesn't have to be a blogger who's doing this professionally, as long as they have a network around them of people that listen to them. As I said right when we started, they could have 10 people, but those 10 people could still drive more traffic than the Houston Chronicle or a 2-minute segment on KHOU. So absolutely, it's just about figuring out who your target audience is and who they're listening to and what messages you want them to tell. So if a happy customer wants to share something, a testimonial or a video or whatnot on your own social media, if they're willing to do that, is spectacular. But then if they're posting something on their own social media because they're happy and you share that, it's great content for you that, just like Sarah said, it just gives you content that someone else has talked about you. So an influencer can really be anyone. We're talking a lot about bloggers here and contracts and having formal events, but really anyone who has any type of reach, even if it's just one person.
And there's actually a lot of talk about that right now in this influencer area. Okay, so we talk about different kinds of influencers. We talk about the influencers that have their own, they're like their own media company, right? So they're almost like what we used to do with journalists in some ways, although they're not journalists. Let's be clear. Okay, they're not having to turn out stories for their boss. Okay, so you have to realize that they're not that. So that's a different group of people than, say, your already customers. And inside of your customers, some of those can be very influential, some of them are maybe not so much. So what's the word of mouth on that? And there's a lot of loyalty programs that are built around that, a lot of really amazing ways that you can kind of set that up to get people to share by word of mouth with their audiences through contests, through rewarding them for driving a certain amount of traffic, for whatever that is. So we can be very creative about this influencer thing, right? It's not just about one kind of influencer.
And there's different things that you can get from each of those influencers too. Maybe they're not, maybe the goal is not for them to drive a bunch of traffic from their audience, but maybe you need pictures and you need content. And sometimes it can be really hard to get all that content. And so just by asking your audience, hey, share your picture of our product and offering them some value for that can be like the best way just to build up your multimedia.
Yeah, for travel and tourism, we do a lot of that as well. We look at the hashtags that we ask them to use, and if they're using the hashtag and you can even have in your different locations like these little frames like set up so people can stand behind them. I mean, I'm sure you've seen them around town, right? It's like something where you can stand behind it, get your picture taken. It has a little hashtag with it. They share it, and then if you go to them and say, hey, we loved your picture, can we share it on our Instagram channel? They are often very excited about that, or on our Facebook page. And then you share it there, and then they share it with all their friends, right? Because they come and say, oh my goodness, they used my picture. So, I mean, it can be very cool to do it that way. And I think that that's part of what we were talking about with influencers too, like regular, blogger type of professional influencers, is that we don't use the content that is put out there enough in our own channels with permission, talking to people, by the way. So don't just use people's content and not tell them that you're using it. Work with people, right?
Yeah, definitely tag them. I don't necessarily need permission, but I would love it if you would.
Please do, just do it. Just do permission.
Yeah, permission's nice.
People get in trouble for this all the time.
Tag me and don't crop off my own branding. That happens every once in a while. But a great example of what y'all were talking about is the Chewbacca mask. Did anyone see those videos of Cole and how Cole's, right?
We talked about that here, right?
Yeah. So. And then Cole's really did some really beautiful, smart things with with that.
And Hasbro too. I mean, they just kept making that live, right? By continuing to come back. And so instead of going out and saying, I want to make a viral video, they took a viral video that used their product and they highlighted it. And they made a relationship with that person and they talked to that person. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity here, and I know we're out of time, so I'm quit while we're ahead. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your information with us today. Could you guys give them a hand for being here and sharing?